Our story begins with showing a little girl and a guy who wants to get what she has in her hand. In return, this kind brother offers her a delicious candy. But she says that this deal is completely unprofitable, and her brother should give her 2 lollipops. Instead, he simply takes the strange stone from her and leaves the girl to drown in her tears, a true Sigma. The boy carefully examines this stone. He cannot even imagine how expensive it is. But suddenly, the stone pulls a drop of blood from this guy's finger and begins to glow with a bright red light. As a result, he begins to experience severe pain and cannot understand what the hell is happening here. The dude tried to throw the stone away, but he couldn't do it and fell to the ground. Looking up, the guy noticed how the sky began to change and thought that today was a very strange day. A strange space appeared around him and the pearl began to transfer its power to him, but he does not know this yet. The guy was in terrible pain and his eye turned into Boruto's eye. When he woke up, he decided to look back and wanted to understand what just happened. Looking into his hand, he noticed that the stone had disappeared somewhere. Suddenly, he saw that a landslide was happening near him and that his car was broken. Closing his left eye, the guy saw that there was no fire pit, but how could this be? The dude notices a car in the distance, the one that just got into a terrible accident. But how is this even possible? Is his left eye really capable of foreseeing the future? Now there is no time to think about his new abilities, and he jumps out in front of the car to warn of the danger. A person's life turns out to be more important to him. The driver from the car said that he was crazy and yelled at him to immediately get out of the road. This driver turned out to be a lady, and after getting out of the car, she repeated her question, "Did he want to die?" He explained the situation to her. The guy stopped the car because there was supposed to be a terrible landslide. He saw it. Out of anger, the girl decided to kick him, but our main character dodges this blow. She was shocked by this and thought that the boy also studied martial arts. Suddenly, a landslide happened and completely destroyed the road. Both stood in shock and the lady asked how he knew that there would be a catastrophe there. Another girl gets out of the car and tells Xiao not to be mad at this guy. If it weren't for this handsome guy, they would have simply died in a terrible catastrophe. The girl with pink hair is called Mo Yusei, and she thanked our hero for saving their lives. Our hero said that he didn't do anything special, but in his thoughts he thought that this girl was incredibly beautiful. A lady with brown hair looked at the guy with admiration and asked how he knew that a landslide would happen. In the next frame, our hero was already sitting in their car and did not know how to talk to such a beautiful girl. It turns out that he has X-ray vision and notices a panda design on the clothes of a pink-haired girl. The madam behind the wheel asks our guy's name and makes fun of him that he is carefully looking at Mo Yusei. Has he really fallen in love? The boy clearly blushed at such a harsh phrase, but still said that his name was Do You. He got out of the car and said that he would stop here. Xiao thought that something had happened to him and gave him their phone numbers. If he needed help, he should call them, and asked him to call them sisters. After saying goodbye to them, he thought that his left eye had received superpowers and these abilities were simply amazing. Our hero noticed a woman from whom he rents an apartment who was walking with very heavy bags. Suddenly, his god eye was activated, and he noticed that some kind of thing was glowing in her bag. It seemed to him that this was not a very good thing, but how could it emit such a powerful aura, and how did it get into that woman's bag? The action moves to a pawn shop where she tried to sell her father's collection, but unfortunately, she was told that it was only worth 800 yen. The old man explained to her that her inkstone is made from fine clay and then mixed with yellow granules. 800 yen is an acceptable price for such an item. Our hero approaches her and says that he wants to look at her product and then buy it. She is clearly not happy to see it, but says that she will let him look until his rent is paid off. Do You activates his god eye and the green glow appears again in this old man's hands. He says that he will definitely pay her rent a little later, but now he wants to talk about her inkstone. As soon as he saw it, he immediately fell in love. How much does she want to sell it for? The woman names the price at 3,000 yuan, and our hero thinks that this is too expensive for him. This fat woman deliberately inflates the price. Does she really think that Do You won't be able to afford it? Then he looks back at the owner of the pawn shop. The inkstone emitted an incredibly strong aura that was similar to the stone that gave him superpowers. As a result, he confidently says that he will gladly buy it for 3,000 and expected that the price would be much more expensive. The pawn shop owner was at a loss and asked our hero why he decided to help this fat woman, because it was clearly not worth it. The woman immediately demanded money and told him not to dare deceive her, otherwise he would have nowhere else to live. Do You asked her to follow him, he left his money elsewhere. Now our hero is already sitting at home with his inkstone. He gave his last 3,000 for it and prayed that this would not be a mistake. While he was pulling out the stone, the guy managed to cut himself, but it's okay. Only the magic item is important to him now. Looking at a piece of jade that was carved in the shape of a donut, he thought that this stone was far from being as simple as it seemed at first glance. Suddenly, this thing activated and resonated with our boy's eye. What kind of magical object is this? Du felt a strange sensation, as if his whole body had completely relaxed, just an incredible feeling. Looking at his hand, he realized that the scratch had completely healed, and not even a trace remained. Did he really think that his left eye had gained the ability to self-reduce? It was simply incredible. He decided to look on the internet for how much he could sell an already unnecessary piece of jade for, and was clearly surprised by what he saw. Having learned that it could be sold for 98,000 yen, he already imagined himself as a millionaire Mr. Beast. Sitting on his bed, he shouted loudly that he would definitely buy himself a Ferrari sports car, which would be just right for him. The action moves to the city to a local pawn shop. Our hero decides to ask the owner how much he can sell his jade pendant for. The owner immediately realized that this was jade of excellent quality, but first decided to bargain a little with Du. He told our hero that the quality of this jade is no longer very good, and that he can buy it for a maximum of 5,000, which is definitely not enough to buy himself a car. In this case, our guy is not going to sell such a good pendant and already wants to leave, but this confused the pawn shop owner. He stops Du and raises the price to 50,000 yuan, but this is still not the price our hero expected. The guy turns around because this is already close to the money he was counting on, and the owner says that he thinks that this is a pretty reasonable price. Du sat in a comfortable chair and sipped jasmine tea, anticipating the soon-to-be terribly rich Elon Musk. The pawnshop owner carefully examined this piece of jade and the inscriptions that were on it. He came to the conclusion that it was simply excellent quality. He told our hero that this is just a great thing that is distinguished by its phoenix color, but unfortunately he cannot afford it. The owner says that he will give him the number of one rich man who will buy it for a large sum. He immediately called him and said that he had one thing specifically for his collection. It was better for him to drive to the pawn shop himself and look at this piece of pure jade. That rich man told him that if he didn't like the product, he would finish it off, and the owner of the pawn shop asked him to take Master Wang with him. He is a knowledgeable person and will definitely help determine the value of this stone. The owner smiled at our hero and said that if that guy likes this thing, then he can ask him for a lot of money. And don't be shy, because he is a rich man of the second generation, and his money is through the roof. But our hero says that he wants his jade to be bought at the real price, and in gratitude gives one agency point to the pawn shop owner. He rubs his hands like a real sly man and asks to leave this work for him. Time passed, and that same rich dude with his assistant came into the pawn shop and loudly asked where the thing they wanted to sell him was. This rich guy's name is Xiao Shan, and he can't wait to look at that piece of jade. The pawn shop owner shows him our main character and says that this item belongs to him and he should be bargained with. Xiao Shan was a little shocked when he saw the most ordinary guy, but still asked our dude to take out that thing and let him take a closer look. He takes out his jade donut and proudly displays it to the guy. The rich guy's assistant examined the jade and clearly liked it. Xiao Shan warned our hero not to worry, because Uncle Wang always behaves this way when he sees a beautiful thing. He will definitely pay him well because he liked this thing. Our hero asked the fat guy about his rich friend and why he didn't introduce them earlier. The fat man's name is Hao Shuai, and he introduced his rich friend Xiao Shan. Our hero also said his name and was glad to meet you. It's time for dinner, and Xiao Shan decided to treat his new friend. He lives not far from here. The fat man clearly likes this idea. Entering this guy's apartment, our hero was shocked by the scale. It was very spacious inside. The friends sat down at the table and decided to discuss the cost of the jade pendant. Xiao Shan says that this piece costs at least 500,000 yuan. If our hero has no problems, then he can give him a card and transfer 200,000 as an advance. We need to discuss the details of the purchase with the family. Du was clearly in shock because the price had increased as much as 5 times. Of course, he has no problems and immediately gives his bank card number. The fat man says that it would be better for our hero to simply send the card number for Xiao Shan, but he says that there is no need for this because he has already managed to remember it. He told Du to feel at home here because they had now become brothers. In his thoughts, he thought that Xiao Shan was just a great guy with a good character. Suddenly, a new notification about the transfer of 200,000 yuan arrived on our hero's phone. Wow, it was so fast. Du looked around at his new surroundings and expected that these people would become close friends for him. It's time to say goodbye, and Xiao Shan said that our hero should come here when he has free time. It's rare to meet a person with whom you can just chat at home. While they were walking towards the exit, they met a group of people sitting at a table and discussing important business strategy issues. Xiao Shan asked our hero if he now has free time to meet his father. The old man calls the boy over and says that he clearly has something to brag about to his father. Xiao Shan says that he also has something to show. This is his new friend Du, the owner of a very rare jade pendant. The old man looked at this jade and said that it is clearly not as simple as it seems at first glance. It is made of a very rare type of material. Xiaoshan decided to consult with him because he could not set an acceptable price on his own, and the fat man boasted that he understood from the very beginning that jade was very valuable. He completely forgot that he should introduce our main character to other members of his family sitting at the table. The guy with black hair is the future secretary of Jiangnan City, and the second is the director of a large company. Having carefully examined this pendant, the old man said that it was incredibly old and valuable. One of the elders used to carry it with him all the time. The fat man didn't quite understand what they were telling him, but our hero explained that one day the elder secretly went to another city, and there he met a beautiful woman named Chen Yanjun. After which they began a relationship, and the elder gave this girl a piece of jade so that she would bring it to Kyoto. But in the end, the girl simply disappeared along with the stone. As for the piece of jade, there are records in the department about its secret location. The old man praised our hero for such knowledge of history. Few modern young people know this history. He became very interested in where our boy came here from. Duyu says that he is from a small village on the edge of the city. The old man says that he has been there and asks our hero if he knows the Dawang village of Qingshui City. He thought that the old man was just joking that he knew this village because our boy was from there. The old man was shocked when he found out about this and asked if Duyu knew a man named Hong Wanli. He lived in an old shabby one on the edge of their village. Our hero realized that now we were talking about his house, and the person who lived there was his grandfather Hong Wanli, who adopted him. The old man still couldn't believe it. He was bothered by the fact that his grandfather didn't tell him anything about the village of Dawang. The boy is a little puzzled. Was there really something terrible in this village? But instead of a terrible story, the old man began to neigh loudly like a horse because our main character is exactly the little monkey that his grandfather told about. Duyu's face became as serious as Saitama's. Why did his grandfather call him a little monkey all his childhood? The old man clearly had a bad back, but he still got up to greet the grandson of an old friend from the village of Dawang. He came up and hugged him, even though our hero's grandfather has been dead for a long time, but he wants to communicate with him as a family, and if he ever needs help, he can turn to him. The old man gives him his number and tells him not to hesitate to call him, because he and his grandfather were best friends for many years. Our hero is clearly glad that his life has changed so dramatically after receiving his abilities. The action takes place in a very realistic cafe where our heroes were relaxing. Xiaoshan decided to order a few kegs of beer, and the waiter greeted his old friend and offered fresh green beans. He would cook them just now. Meanwhile, the old man is thinking about a new acquaintance. The village in which our main character grew up is a strange place, but Duyu is also an interesting young man. Didn't his grandfather tell him anything? But now the old man thinks that his grandfather didn't tell him anything on purpose because he wanted a quiet life for his grandson. He really wants to help his friend's grandson so that he can live his life well. The action moves back to the cafe where the girl brought our heroes their realistic green beans. Our hero recognized a girl named Ning Fei. She is the pride of the school and grew up in a very decent family, but why does she work in such a place? The fat man noticed the way Duyu looked at this girl and said that this girl looked simply irresistible. He wanted to introduce her to his friend. He points to our main character and says that this handsome guy recently became a very rich man, an excellent candidate for a couple. But when Duyu saw that the girl felt uncomfortable, he thought that the fat man was a real idiot. Is it really possible to say such things openly? He apologizes and says that his fat friend is just joking, but in his thoughts he was already ready to kill his comrade. Finally, the girl only said that if our heroes don't need anything else, then she should return to her work. The fat man jokes about the guy because he was sitting all red like a tomato. Has our main character really never had a girlfriend? Xiaoshan explains to him that it is normal when a gentleman from JoJo meets a noble woman. He should go after her and tell her how he feels. But our hero says that he doesn't like her at all. She is the pride of the school, and he has only seen her in photographs. Suddenly, the waiter comes up to them and says that their dish has already been prepared. Having tried it, our hero said that it was very tasty, but he could not understand the strange taste. What kind of dish is this? The fat man says that this dish is made from chicken meat and gives him a hint that the name lies in the song of a famous singer. Having realized what it is, our main character begins to spit out food. Did his friends really allow him to eat such disgusting stuff? The rich majors just laughed. Why did Duyu spit out everything he ate? Because this is the most expensive part that is on a chicken's body. A little time passed and the action moved to the street where a crowd of hooligans invited the girl to ride with them. In order to attract attention, she loudly shouted that these freaks should not come near her or she would call the police. When our hero realized that it was the same waitress who was screaming, he hurried to leave the cafe to help her. He immediately called out and asked what these freaks were doing here with this girl. At the same time, he loudly shouted that this was his girlfriend and they had no right to approach her. Those freaks said that this is not a fairy tale. where a little boy will save a beautiful lady, and it would be better for him to get out of here while his teeth are still there. But Do-yu simply turns to the girl and asks him not to worry, he will be next to her. She begs him not to pretend to be a hero and to call the police as soon as possible. But our boy says that the police won't be needed here because he can handle a couple of freaks. Do-yu activates his ability that can foresee the future a few seconds in advance. Is it inconvenient in battle? One of those freaks is already tired of putting up with our main character showing off so much and is already flying to punch him in the face. But instead, Do-yu dodges the attack and hits back, showing who the real boss of the rocking chair is. The dude is clearly angry that his pride has just been trampled and shouts to his partners to quickly go and finish this guy off. Of course, they turn out to be stupid sixes and run to the first call of their captain. They are interested in how many our main character can defeat. But these guys turn out to be total lasers and take a lot of hits from our boy. Do-yu was already an excellent fighter, but with the ability to foresee the future, he became a real killing machine. The guy is already defeated but still asks our hero how he manages to fight so well. But he doesn't answer him and thinks only that the 6-second foresight of his left eye is really a useful ability, after which he punches this guy right in the face. The girl was simply shocked by what was happening. She could not believe that Do-yu was able to fight like that and was so strong. She approached him from behind and thanked him for helping her in this situation. He was a little shy and couldn't understand how the pride of the school knew his name. Maybe she had a good impression of our main character. Suddenly, our faithful assistants appeared. The fat man heard from the boss that he was getting lost here with some hooligans and came to help. But apparently their help was no longer needed. He noticed that several beaten freaks were lying on the floor, and realized that our boy did all this. He thought that he was incredibly strong. What a pity that Do-yu did not tell them that he would perform a heroic act, but they specially gathered people together to repel those hooligans. Our hero cannot tell them about his abilities, and therefore says that he did not do anything supernatural. It was just ordinary luck. Suddenly that lady calls our hero, and says that she called her friend so that he could pick her up. She thanked him again for saving her, and said that she was ready to go home. The fat man, as always with his stupid jokes, says that Do-yu definitely likes this lady. Why doesn't he confess to her? But our hero believes that he only recently met her, and does not want events to develop so rapidly. Why does Do-yu feel like there are too many people around? But behind him there really was a huge crowd of people. Xiaoshan can only smile awkwardly and says that now the real fun will begin. The car is driving towards them at great speed and is clearly not going to stop. Our heroes are about to start a real party. Those freaks have already woken up and say that this time they definitely won't be able to defeat them because a whole crowd has come to their aid. But suddenly a large group of cool dudes in suits appears who are clearly anti-bully. It turns out that Xiaoshan called his friends in advance and called them for help. It turned out that he did it for good reason. It didn't take these guys long to deal with these hooligans, and after a couple of minutes they were already lying on the ground. The leader of these guys is called Chen. Before he leaves, Xiaoshan wants him to meet his new friend Do-yu. Chen hands him his business card and says that if he needs help, he should call him. He is the manager of a real estate company and has a lot of influence. Our hero shows reciprocity and says that if brother Chen needs something from him, he can also contact him without a doubt. The fat man wants to continue their evening, but can no longer stand on his feet. Our main character says that it's time for him too, and he will definitely contact them tomorrow. In parting, Xiaoshan says that he wants to see him tomorrow at lunch and show him a nice place. Now, our main character is a rich young man, and he is already thinking about how to spend his money. Tomorrow, he will go to quit his job and also buy a house and a car. It sounds pretty good. Suddenly, he noticed how some girl was running away from her pursuers with a lot of wounds. I wonder what they want from her. Our hero was in a difficult situation and didn't know what to do. Help her escape or help those guys catch her. Is she a good person or a bad one? But suddenly, this girl attacked him, trying to activate her abilities. He could not understand why he could not do this. Having knocked our hero to the ground, she realized that she had attacked a civilian. It was not good to attract so much extra attention to herself during a secret operation. She hands him a strange flask and tells him to give it to Chief Wang from the police station, and that he better hurry because the pursuers are already close. Our main character cannot understand what story he just got into, but the girl does not have time to explain the situation. The dude in the suit says that this flask should belong to them, and first they need to deal with this damn girl. Madame wants to apologize to our hero for dragging him into such a story, but dragging him in is too mild a word. But even if Do-yu accidentally got into this story, he is not going to just stand by and watch some freaks hunt the girl. That guy in the suit is not going to stand on ceremony, and will immediately attack our heroes with a knife. Do-yu somehow dodges his attack. If not for his left eye that foresees the future for 6 seconds, he would have been a corpse long ago. The dude couldn't believe that this guy dodged so easily, and thought that he was that girl's accomplice, but he still had a few more blows for him. but even from several blows, our boy calmly dodges with the help of his eye. The enemy dude is already sweating from such a battle. Our hero clearly infuriates him. How is this even possible since he didn't even manage to touch the boy? Apparently, Du-Yu decided to completely anger this guy and asks him to show him everything this weakling is capable of. He tells his partners not to come closer because this guy is clearly an unusual person and the partner of that girl. After which, he gives the order to retreat and return with reinforcements to finish them both off. Our hero thinks that it was too close and not thought through because he was somehow able to save the life of that girl and his own. Suddenly, from the wounds she received, the girl lost too much cherry juice from her body and fell to the ground and felt terrible pain. The guy wants to call the doctor, but she asks him not to do this because it will attract unnecessary attention. After which she says that he should not forget to give this flask to Chief Wang. It is very important to her. He cannot fully understand the situation, and all he can do is watch the girl die from her wounds. Those guys in suits had already returned to catch our heroes, but they were not there. Their leader said that they needed to be found at any cost, or they would not be able to continue to live in peace. Meanwhile, our hero had already brought the girl to the hospital. Her condition was terrible, and she asked him to help her put a bandage on the wound. Du-Yu is embarrassed to do this because they have known each other for only a short time, and she asks him for such things. But the girl says that she will not be against this. In other cases, she will simply die from the loss of cherry juice in her body. In such cases, he will have to cut a piece of clothing to apply a bandage. It is better for her not to move now, or the bleeding may increase. While our hero was trying to treat the wound, the girl decided to ask him about that battle. She was interested in the martial arts that the guy practiced because he defeated his opponent so easily. Du-Yu says that he did a little wrestling, but now he is interested in finding out her name. And in order to gain confidence, our hero tells her his. Her name was Yun Qing, which translates as a cloud of happiness, but for some reason our hero was very surprised by her name. Looking at the terrible wound on her body, he understood that she would not last long even after applying a bandage and something urgently needed to be thought of. His eyes have recently gained the ability to heal themselves, and he is thinking about how he could use these powers to help Yun Qing. He strains his eye, trying to transfer his energy to her, and begs for his plan to work. Suddenly, that same aura appeared around her wound, and it seemed that the girl had already been saved. Our hero is glad that his crazy plan worked, but why does he feel so tired? As if all the strength had left his body, he urgently needs to find a place to rest a little. Bags immediately appeared under his eyes, as if he had not slept for several days playing CS:GO, after which he lost consciousness. Time passes and our hero wakes up and does not understand what is happening now, as if he had been hit on the head with a bat. Looking around, he realized that he was in some kind of apartment, but he didn't remember what happened yesterday. Maybe he drank a lot of drinks at a party with friends yesterday. Now this is not very important. He wants to go and fulfill his old dream, namely to quit the job he hates so much. Arriving at the place, he was immediately met by a colleague and told him that his boss wanted to see him and needed to discuss some issues. But Du-Yu is clearly not in the mood to talk and simply silently walks past this guy as if he were transparent. Our main character is sure that Zhangjigang will report again. A big country will definitely take a lot of good things. Just listen to what he said. Our hero's colleague really likes to show off. It's good that from this day on, Du-Yu has become a very rich Mr. Beast and can play a little goodbye and take revenge on his colleagues and boss. It seems that Zhangjigang is also negatively opposed to our guy and accepts the challenge in which he will fight to the death. The action moves to the director's office. The boss was surprised because our main character himself agreed to apologize to his colleague at the morning meeting. Du-Yu even happily says that he will go down to everyone and do it in front of other colleagues, but it seems that he has a cunning plan for him. The time has come for the morning meeting, and the director says that before the holidays, there was an incident in which 2 employees quarreled, and that Du-Yu realized his mistake and would like to apologize. The blonde boss asks our hero to leave the row of workers and tell everyone what happened. He comes out, but instead of starting to apologize, he says that he does not consider himself to blame for the incident between him and Zhang Zhigang. The boss and the guy who was waiting for an apology were shocked by our hero's words. What does he even allow himself to do? He continues and says that if other workers had not asked him, he would have beaten Zhang Zhigang. And finally, he announces his dismissal. After which he takes out an envelope from his shirt and throws it at the boss so that everyone can see that Du-Yu has retained his pride. Of course, the boss was shocked by such insolence. Not only did he not apologize, but the boss would also lose one of his employees. Zhang Zhigang adds fuel to the fire and says that it was very impolite for the main character to leave like that because he was an ordinary trainee. The boss just starts yelling for Du-Yu to come back because his internship report is still with him. Doesn't our hero want to get his diploma? Du doesn't even turn around and says that they can do whatever they want with his documents, because now he is terribly rich and wants to open his own business. Let them continue to work at this factory for a small salary. The director just stood there, not understanding what was happening, and suddenly his phone rang. It was Secretary Lee, and when he asked what he needed from his boss, he heard clearly unpleasant news. He was told that they were looking for an employee named Du, and had come specifically to pick him up personally. He tells the secretary that our main character just quit and greatly insulted the boss, but they already know that. The director starts yelling at Zhao Zhigang to quickly drop everything and run to catch up with Du. Without him, he may not return to work or he will leave him without a salary. The boss's anger became too great, and he shouted at the rest of the workers so that they would run after our hero. Du didn't even have time to leave the territory of the place where he worked when he saw that the entire crowd of workers was running towards him and wanted to stop him. He thought that a fight would start. Our hero decided to turn on flash mode and began to run away from them. Did the boss really gather such a large crowd of people just to beat him goodbye? Fortunately, Du manages to board the first bus he comes across and waves goodbye to this idiot because they couldn't catch him. They will be able to catch up with our hero only in their dreams because he took third place in the 5,000-meter run in the school sports club competition. Suddenly, he received a call from his sister named Xiao Jue, who found out that our hero had just quit his job. She was interested in the reason why he did this. He couldn't understand how she realized so quickly that he quit, but still tells the story about the guy who gave him trouble at work. And so he decided to cause trouble for them. After all, he is not a fool to return to a place where he is humiliated, and the crowd was also chasing him to beat him. Xiaozu says that she holds a high position in the company where our hero worked, and she invites him to come to her office to find a new suitable job. The words that he could become a general manager in a company where he was humiliated made him drool. The action moves to the boss's office where our main character notices a very familiar face in the form of a girl with pink hair. This is the same girl whose life our main character saved, and she asks him that when no one is around he can call her little sister. He sat down in a chair and talked about how he was going to open his own business and was no longer going to work for anyone. The girl gives him advice because he only recently graduated from school and does not have sufficient knowledge. It is better to work and gain experience. But if he already wants to open his own business, then that's just great. She wishes him good luck and asks him to tell her if he needs help, and also tells him that little sister Xiao Yao wants to invite him to dinner. He can find her in the gym. Our hero happily accepts her help and says that he will definitely call if necessary, and then says goodbye. She says that she will definitely call, and if he has time, she would like to treat him to dinner. Du, of course, agrees to dinner with the beautiful lady. The action moves to the fitness room, and we are shown many students who are mastering martial arts. Meanwhile, our little sister was their master, and watched every movement so that their blows were perfect. Suddenly, our main character appears and tells Xiaoqiu that he has finally arrived, just like Gojo Satoru at 20 hours 31 minutes. She just asks why it took him so long to get there, and asks him to go with her to the locker room to change into a kung fu uniform. It seems he doesn't really like this idea, but just one glance from this strict woman was enough for Du to go change into his sports uniform. In the next frame, our main character was already standing in the ring in which he fought against the boss of this rocking chair. Du was surprised because this girl has a very strong spirit of competition, but he didn't really want to fight. Xiaoyao says that our hero looks too calm for someone who will now be lying on the ground. He better be more careful. The girl is clearly serious, and a second later she finds herself in front of our boy, striking him right in the head. Of course, with the help of his ability, he easily dodges this attack, but his face still shows how he does not want to fight the girl. The students watching their battle were shocked because our hero dodged all the master's attacks. It's not surprising that Xiao Yao treats him so strictly. Du is not going to seriously fight against the lady because he is a gentleman and suggests that he just give up and peacefully leave the fighting ring. But she says that our hero cannot give up without a fight because he is a man and must show all his courage anyway. This woman will not lag behind until she defeats this guy. Suddenly a bearded guy appears, and with a smile, Hanma Yujiro says that he likes the mood that is happening in the ring. It turns out that this pumped-up guy has heard rumors that there is a woman in this hall who has defeated many kung fu masters. He wants to acknowledge his respect and check how strong this woman is. Xiaoqiu, of course, doesn't understand what's happening now and asks what kind of guy decided to come to her gym. This guy's name is Jin Mujin, and he is also a martial arts teacher. He is surprised that this woman not only fights well, but also looks simply stunning. The students have obviously heard about this guy. The guy with blue hair heard that Jin Mujin took second place in the Thai martial arts tournament. He is simply amazing. Xiaoyao was already determined, and since our main character is not going to fight, she wants to engage in battle with a worthy opponent. The students tried to support their teacher, and said that if this idiot dared to challenge her, then she should teach him a good lesson. But Jinmujin's students also came to watch the battle and asked their master to show how strong the men were. Our hero was angry because he could not help her in this battle, and in his thoughts asked her to be strong because she had a difficult battle ahead of her. The battle has already begun, and our girl decided that she wants to end everything quickly and kicks this guy right in the head. But Jinmujin is also not a weak fighter, and therefore stops her attack with one blow of his fist, after which their blows collide. Xiaoyu thought that this was a good blow, but it was not enough to defeat her, and she wants to try a couple more techniques. The girl turns out to be very fast and makes multiple kicks with her legs, preventing her opponent from making a return blow. Basically, the guy only has to repel and block attacks, but he wonders if she still has any trump cards up her sleeve. After all, if this was all she was capable of, then now it was his turn to carry out his series of blows. He makes a very crazy face and then kicks his huge leg right into the body of Our Lady, causing her to fly to the edge of the ring. She is clearly tired from the battle, but she still has the fighting spirit and she wants to prove that she is a strong fighter. One of the students said that this guy is really very wild and fights like a beast. Teacher Xiao Yao definitely cannot compare with him, and our hero was only thinking about how to help his sister. As expected, the sister is not able to cope with such a huge fighter. Their difference in strength is too great, and now we can only hope for luck. This jock turns out to be too smug and says that since the girl can no longer show anything in the battle, then he has already won. But Xiao Yao says that Jinmujin can defeat her only in her dreams. She has not yet recovered from her wounds, but she will still be able to bring him down from heaven to earth. Our hero was a little shocked by these words because the girl was trying to justify her defeat and get away with it. He decides to check her condition using his ability, but as soon as he saw the injury, his left eye stopped working. Suddenly, the girl points to Du Yu and says that her youngest student will fight instead of her. They are about the same in strength, and if he plays, she will admit defeat. Jinmujin agrees to her conditions, but says that if her student cannot show a worthy fight, then they will hang a sign on the door admitting that he is much better than them. After which he adds the condition that if the boy loses, then Xiao Yao will become his girlfriend and they will then get married. And she just smiles and says that first he will have to defeat her youngest student, and then they will talk about marriage. Xiao Yao tells our hero to go and take care of this guy instead of her, and if Du Yu wins, then she will become his girlfriend. Now the happiness of this girl is in the hands of our hero, and it would be better for him to fight like a real man and not disappoint his sister. The words that our hero will finally have a girlfriend inspired him, and it seems that he will now destroy this guy with one blow. But Jinmujin is also not going to just stand and watch as they try to take away his beautiful lady, and therefore immediately goes on the attack on our guy. Of course, our hero's abilities work and he can see the future for 6 seconds. This allows him to easily escape all of this guy's attacks. Xiao Yao was outraged by the vile act of that guy because he attacked our hero like a real rat. She supports Du Yu to defeat this freak. The words that the girl said clearly angered the big guy, and now the fight will be even more difficult. Thank you very much, teacher. But even despite his anger, Du Yu still manages to dodge all of his attacks so he can hold out until Jinmujin gets tired. This guy's eyes lit up because our hero turned out to be a very good opponent, but maybe he'll stop just dodging and go into hand-to-hand combat. Xiao Yao has become a real cheerleader and says that if he can defeat the big guy, they will immediately go to the registry office to witness their marriage. Now Du Yu has no other choice and he simply must win in order to get the heart and hand of a beautiful lady. Jinmujin says that if our hero is not going to attack first, then he will continue his series of attacks until he does. Du Yu noticed that the pumped-up guy had lost control of himself. This is just a great chance. If now he dodges, then our hero will have a chance to counterattack. He manages to dodge, after which he punches him directly in the jaw and briefly deprives the enemy of the ability to stand. It seems that Jinmujin will no longer be able to rise after such a blow, so our main character is declared the winner. The crowd was overjoyed because this guy had just been defeated with one blow. They could not believe the strength of our hero, and Xiao Yao was happy that she would not have to marry in captivity. The action moves to the locker room where the girl praised our hero for being an excellent fighter like her. It's time to change to casual clothes. But the guy can't understand why she needs to change clothes because she has to teach her students in the hall. And she says that she needs to change clothes for their wedding photography, from which our hero begins to spit water in different directions. Out of excitement, the guy says that this is not a very good idea because they are like brother and sister to each other and definitely cannot get married. Seeing how embarrassed our main character was, the girl decided that it would be better to treat him to dinner after a difficult battle. The action moves to the restaurant, and the lady notices that Du Yu doesn't look in her direction at all. Couldn't he really imagine that his little sister turns out to be a very beautiful girl? But our main character, as always in his repertoire, cannot say even one word and does not look in the direction of the girl. For such a special evening, our boy decided to buy himself an expensive suit. He recently became richer than Andrew Tate and can afford a new thing from Prado. Seeing our hero, Xiao Yao simply could not look away. A man looks amazing in any clothes, but when he puts on a decent suit, it is simply unique. She asked him not to take it off because they are buying it. The girl immediately hurried to the checkout to pay, but our hero hurried to stop her because this suit was too expensive. But Xiao Yao declares that as his little sister, she is not going to skimp on her brother and takes out her platinum credit card. The suit cost as much as 320,000 yuan, but they were lucky that they got on the day of discounts. Our hero was shocked that the girl parted with such an amount so easily. Xiao Yao decided to ask the boy one small request for treating him so well, but our hero did not understand such a strange question. But still, he agreed to fulfill her request, of course, if it was not out of the ordinary. In this case, Xiao Yao asks our hero to pretend to be her boyfriend for the evening. Of course, he was shocked by such a sharp request. First she called him to marry, and now she asks him to be her boyfriend. What's wrong with this woman? Suddenly we are shown Xiao Yao sitting in a cafe with a completely different young man. What did she decide to do? Our main character approaches her from behind with a bouquet of flowers and compliments her that the girl looks just great today. The lady pretended to be surprised, and the guy with glasses clearly tensed because a new rival for the heart of this lady had just appeared in front of him. Our hero introduced himself and apologized for being late. He says that he is the boyfriend of this beauty, but unfortunately he could not notify her family about this, and it turns out they had already arranged a blind date for her. But this guy with glasses managed to tense up. His name is Joe K, and he asks our hero about his job and how much he earns. He says that he just recently graduated and will soon start opening his own business, and the girl apologizes because her family forced her to go on a blind date. She asks him to think of this date as a friendly meeting, and in her thoughts says that our main character is doing a good job in his role. Duyu was about to go home, but the lady didn't want to let him go so easily and asked if he had any other plans for tonight. But our main character had already suffered enough and decided to just get into a taxi and leave quickly, saying goodbye to his little sister. As a result, the girl was left alone and scolded our hero, thinking that she was not attractive enough for him. Finally, our hero met with his old friend, but Xiao Shan immediately asked him what kind of strange suit he was wearing. When our hero called his friend a show-off who wears expensive clothes, but now he himself decided to dress up in an expensive suit. Xiao Shan warned that when they got to the place, our hero should stay away from him because he does not feel confident next to him. Duyu says that his friend is good since he came to the gambling stones for a blind date, but Xiao Shan says that he is not here for a date. He simply gracefully straightens his hair and says that he came here to meet a couple of beautiful ladies and spend the evening with them. Xiao Shan says that he better go away and explore the place a little until he finds a new girlfriend and promises not to get involved in gambling. Our main character is thinking about playing with stones because, with the help of his eyes, he could easily win a large amount of money. The boy carefully examined the stones and thought that he was a real lucky guy, because with the help of such vision, he could earn money out of the blue. While going through different stones, he didn't like them. One had only a small piece of jade, another had too many impurities, and the other looked good but still wasn't good enough. Suddenly, he notices just a huge piece of jade without any other minerals and realizes that he has finally stumbled upon a gold mine. He calls the seller over and tells him to sell him this particular piece of jade, already anticipating a good sum in his pocket. Suddenly, that same Ochkarik comes into the store and realizes that it is just an amazing coincidence that they met in such a place. It turns out that he works in this store. This is truly an amazing coincidence. The bespectacled boy decided to find out a little from our hero, how much he understands precious stones, what he knows about their evaluation. But our boy says that he knows practically nothing, and that the game of stones should depend only on the luck of the player. Of course, this game has its share of excitement, but Oshkarik says that even if our hero has a huge amount of money, he must play it safe and analyze the system. This barnacle boy turns out to be a real villain, and cannot understand what that girl saw in him if he is so stupid. If he does not teach our hero a lesson at least once, he will never be able to calm down. Suddenly, the seller calls our boy and says that it's time to cut this stone and test the luck of our main character. Duyu is not at all against doing this, but Barnacle Boy says that they don't know him at all. They definitely need to conduct an analysis. Our hero thought that this guy was too persistent and said that he relied solely on his luck. He was completely confident that there would be jade in this particular stone. Such self-confidence only made this guy with glasses laugh, and he says that our hero should still come down from heaven to earth, because this is still a large amount of money. He offers to make a small bet, and if suddenly there is no jade in this stone, then our boy will have to kneel down and apologize to this bespectacled man. Will Duyu have the courage? Well, in this case, if there is jade in it, then Barnacle Boy will have to kneel down and apologize to our hero. He happily takes part in this game. He says that everything is just fine, but in his thoughts he thinks that he will make this young man disgrace himself in front of a huge crowd of people for stealing his girl. Well, the time has come to resolve this dispute, and the seller places a piece of stone on the cutter to check for the presence of jade inside. After the stone was divided into 2 parts, the seller immediately told our guy great news and called him a real lucky guy because a bright jade light was coming from the stone. While the seller was assessing the high quality of this jade, Du decided to humiliate his offender a little and informed him of his defeat. But instead of fulfilling his part of the agreement, this guy simply leaves, pushing aside the crowd of people, and says that they will definitely meet with our main character. The seller suggests that our hero finish cutting the stone right now. It will be a great way to show off. Du says that this is a great idea and leaves this work to him. But it seems that our hero will not be allowed to leave this store so easily because a huge crowd of people found out about that jade and many wanted to get it. In this crowd, there were very famous people who offered him various sums, and others wanted to buy him with their authority. Our hero at first wanted to wait for the stone to be completely cleaned, but these people from antique stores were not going to wait, and wanted to agree on the purchase price. The crowd had already completely crushed our hero, and he was only thinking about what Xiao Shan was doing now. His help would be very useful now. Meanwhile, he was just bargaining for a piece of jade, and having offered 5 million, another guy said that not only Xiao Shan had money and offered 8 million yuan, but he also turns out to be not such a simple person and raises the stakes to 10 million. Now it's Zheng Bao's turn to raise the stakes. The guy with red hair says that he is inferior to this product, but he could not think that Xiao Shan is so stupid as to buy an item for 10 million, even though its cost is only a few 100,000. He returns to his lady with purple hair, and since she will stay here for a couple more days, he would like to show her the local attractions. But Xiao Shan is not going to give up the girl to him, and says that tomorrow he will definitely find a master who will turn this piece of jade into the decoration she wants. But instead, the girl says that the guy is incredibly stupid, since he bought this material for several million. She doesn't like what he did. Suddenly our hero comes in and Xiao Shan is surprised that he came here, but even Du tells him to save his money for something more worthwhile. It turns out that he has already heard that our hero managed to hit the jackpot when he played with stones, and Du supports his friend and says that even though the girl doesn't like him a little, it seems that she is interested in him. Suddenly there was a loud cry that the guy with red hair had found something valuable, and the lady with purple hair wanted to rush to see the spectacle. But it was in the direction where the girl pointed that our hero's gem was found, and he began to worry that something had not gone according to plan. It turns out that the bespectacled man had already told about the large piece of jade that he lost in a bet, and he was very ashamed. He carefully examined this jade and realized that if he could get it, it would be much better than the piece that he had bet with Xiao Shan. The girl was immediately attracted to the gem, and a feeling of rivalry arose between the two guys for this beautiful lady. And our main character just stood and looked at what was happening, because he understood that this was already his stone. The girl immediately ran up to the seller to find out who the owner of this wonderful stone was, but he told her that the jade dealers had pushed him away, and he would return a little later. The guy with red hair immediately noticed that the lady was interested in this heater, and thought that it would be nice to compete with Xiao Shan once again. He immediately starts mocking him because he just spent 10 million on a small stone and probably doesn't have any money left. Maybe lend him some pocket money. Of course, these words made Xiao Shan very angry, but our main character stopped him and said that this stone belongs to him. They could somehow fool the living smug creatine. At that moment, he thought that this was just an amazing plan and was glad that he had such a friend as our main character. Upon entering the store, he was immediately greeted by a salesman who said that his stone was ready for pickup and he could pick it up for himself. A red-haired boy immediately approached him and said that he was interested in buying this wonderful stone. He just needed to negotiate a price. But our hero was just waiting for this idiot to fall into his trap. He gives his name and says that he is from a very influential family, so our hero should think twice before giving his price. Du asks for forgiveness from this guy and says that he is simply carrying out orders for his master. If he wants so badly, he can personally negotiate a price with him. Of course, he points to his friend Xiao Shan and tells him to come to an agreement with him, and Xiao Shan greets his old enemy. He says a famous quote that before you beat a dog, you need to find out who its owner is, but it seems that our hero doesn't really like the role of an obedient dog. Xiao Shan decided that since the red-haired boy wanted to talk about the price, he immediately offered him to buy this stone for 100 million yuan, which is quite cheap for such a jewel. And immediately he turns to the girl and says that if she likes this stone, he will gladly give it to her for free. The girl, of course, refused such a gift and said that she would rather pay the required price for this stone and thanked her for such an offer. But she began to beat Xiao Shan because they tried to deceive that red-haired guy for money and did not invite her with them. The guy can only apologize, and he says that next time, they will definitely invite her with them. Since they started communicating so well, he decides to introduce his part-time friend to our main character named Du Yu. He is the owner of that beautiful stone. He says that this girl with purple hair is called Su Qing. She is from a very prosperous part and is his childhood friend. Their families have been friends for a very long time, but this girl's family has always been much richer. They are involved in all the industry in the city, and the girl herself is engaged in the sale of jade jewelry. Our hero decided to praise his friend a little in front of this girl and says that he talked a lot about her and could even pluck a star from heaven for her. But only then did he realize what nonsense he had just said. She says that Xiao Shan has been telling her these words since kindergarten. Apparently since that time he has not matured at all, after which Xiao Shan asked our hero not to open his mouth anymore. Since they have gotten to know each other so well, Xiao Shan suggests they go shopping after a hard day. But Du Yu understands perfectly well that now his friend wants to be alone with the girl and does not want to be the third wheel, so he politely refuses such an offer. While the couple went for a walk, our hero decided to walk around the place and explore other jewelry stores, and using his ability continued to find jade. He felt like a very rich Mr. Beast. All the stones that he was able to collect today can together be sold for 200 million yen, and he will become the richest man in the country. Suddenly that red-haired guy comes up to him and reminds him that his friend lost a bet to him. Would our main character like to make another bet this time with this red-haired guy? But our main character reminds us that the last bet was not over yet, which makes the guy with glasses start to get nervous because now he will beg for forgiveness on his knees. Du Yu, of course, understands that this guy decided to argue with him for a reason and that some kind of setup awaits him. But with the help of the ability of his left eye, he is able to easily win any argument. The guy with red hair tells the bespectacled man to stop playing the fool because he himself accepted such a bet, and it's time to pay the bills. Otherwise, he begins to threaten him, and if he does not kneel down immediately, he will definitely fire him from his job. Under pressure from his boss, Barnacle Boy apologizes, and the guy with red hair asks if anything else is needed for our main character to take on a new challenge. It seems that the mind of the guy with glasses has begun to go a little crazy, and he swears that he will definitely make them all kneel in front of him. Since this guy has apologized, Du Yu agrees to accept a new dispute, but what will be their next bet? While Barnacle Boy is still kneeling, the guy with red hair explains that the essence of the dispute will be simple. They will buy 3 stones at this market and then check them. Whoever has the better price of jade will win the dispute. Making a terrifying face, he says that the bet remains the same as before. The one who loses will ask for forgiveness on his knees in front of everyone. Of course, our main character easily accepts this challenge because this guy is trying to make him look like a fool, but the ability of his left eye will not allow him to do this. Our boy carefully examines each stone in order to discover jade in them, but it seems that so far things are not going well. Suddenly, a friend of our hero comes up and doesn't understand why he decided to search in this particular zone. He had already heard about his bet and decided to ask the best experts to select the 3 best jades especially for him. Du Yu, of course, thanks Xiao Shan for his help, but says that he himself will cope with this dispute just fine. It seems to him that today luck will only be on his side. He tells him a story about how he grew up in the mountains since childhood, and although he cannot explain it, he has always had a strange attachment to stones. But Xiao Shan warns him about that red-haired guy because his family owns the best jade appraisers in the country, and it would be unpleasant if our main character were defeated. In such cases, our boy decides to laugh it off and says that he will simply run away like a real coward, but he asks that Xiao Shan not worry about him because our hero already has a good plan. He trusts Du Yu but still asks him to be careful. If he needs his help, he can calmly contact him. Meanwhile, Barnacle Boy had already selected the 3 best stones in his opinion that were on the market. For this, the red-haired guy even suggested that he ask for past grievances because he had done a good job. He also persuaded other sellers in this market, and now they will not agree to deals with a good outcome and Du Yu has no chance of winning. But our main character was able to overhear their entire conversation. The boy already realized that he was now on their territory, and that these guys were going to deceive him, real scoundrels. But Du Yu doesn't want to just give up, and is going to once again carefully examine the area in which his best friend dissuaded him from looking. Luck just smiled on our hero, and he saw real jade among a pile of garbage. Apparently the experts from the rival company are real idiots and do not understand anything about their business. Suddenly the red-haired guy finds him and says that apparently our main character is already completely desperate and offers him his professional help in this matter. But in fact, our boy only feigned excitement, but in reality he simply could not believe that real masters of their craft could not discover such precious stones. The red-haired boy did not understand what kind of nonsense our main character was talking about, because he was already literally confident in his own victory. But our hero didn't pay any attention to him at all, and said that first he wanted to clear the stones and see what the red-haired guy said, that our boy was too arrogant. Finally, both rivals chose suitable stones for themselves, and now all that remained was to wait for the results of the cut. The store owner said that if both participants were ready, he would be happy to start cutting stones. The crowd knew the red-haired guy very well, and there were many rumors about his status. After all, his family owns an entire jade processing company. Does our hero really think that he can win it so easily with luck alone? After sawing the stone, there actually turned out to be a piece of jade, and the seller decided to check its quality using a special flashlight. It turns out that this stone was of the highest quality, and the seller asks where our hero is from, because he has never seen a gem of such excellent quality. But in response, our guy says that he is just an ordinary person. Suddenly, Xiaoshan comes up behind him and says that Du Yu is really good at what he does. It seems that he can put on a great show with these losers. The guy with red hair says that Xiaoshan should not be so arrogant, because jade of very good quality was also found in his stone. For now, he will not put on a show. He says that they haven't broken all the stones yet, and it's too early to determine the winner. Let's see until what point our hero's luck will help him. But having opened the next stone, he is surprised that this stone again turned out to be precious. Our main character is simply incredibly lucky. Of course, the red-haired guy's face immediately changes, and he also doesn't understand that this is possible, and Xiaoshan laughs evilly at his failure. He stands in an elegant pose and asks this guy if he hasn't yet realized who he's standing in front of. When it comes to evaluating stones, then our main character simply has no equal. And the lady with purple hair decides to completely destroy his pride and says that in his family there are absolutely no good experts who understand jewelry. At one point, he simply loses control of himself, and Barnacle Boy somehow restrains his anger. He suspects that our hero cheated and specially hired experts to help him. While Xiaoshan was showing off in front of the public, he almost fell off the table. But Barnacle Boy explains that even the best experts are not able to predict in which stone the jade will be hidden. Only God is capable of this. After these words, the red-haired guy begins to suspect that our main character has some kind of mystical ability. Has he really begun to understand something? Having sawed the last jade, it turned out to be a perfectly transparent color and could be called imperial. The seller brings his congratulations to our hero because this is just a great find. Suddenly, various hands appeared from the crowd again and wanted to get the jade, saying that they were very rich and influential people. While the red-haired guy was angry at the situation, Barnacle Boy tried to support him and said that they would definitely get a good piece of jade from the second stone. Suddenly, the seller says that the guy's stone produced just perfect jade, which is about twice as large as our main character. The crowd was also shocked. In response, he immediately begins to laugh at our hero because he now has another stone in stock. Maybe Du Yu will simply admit his defeat and bow at his feet. He also does not forget about Xiaoshan, who placed great hopes on our main character, so why should he know the bitterness of defeat? Our hero can only make a satisfied smile and say that now the guy with red hair can rejoice a little, but soon he will know the bitterness of defeat. The seller announced that it was time to cut the third stone of our hero and find out what was hidden in it. But after looking at it, he was clearly not happy with what he saw. He said that this stone was too small, and even if there was jade there, it would not even be suitable for illumination of what the guy with red hair received. But after cutting the stone, he realized that he had just seen the most rare phenomenon called imperial glass-type jade. Such a phenomenon happens once every 10,000 years. The quality of this glass jade was simply incredible, and he says that it is simply a great honor to see such a rare phenomenon, and he is glad to see it with his own eyes. The guy with red hair simply couldn't believe what was happening, but the seller asks them to come over and see for themselves such a rare phenomenon. This guy's face became too strange, and he literally began to lick his lips looking at the light from this jade. Our protagonist's comrades were terribly happy that their friend had just found such a value, and the red-haired boy could not believe that he had just lost the argument. The seller declares our hero the winner, and says that his luck did not fail him at the right moment. Now he will be able to pick up his stone after processing. The bespectacled boy tells his boss that just one piece of jade that our hero received defeats them all, and the red-haired boy decides to make a tactical retreat. But he is clearly not going to leave everything just like that, and orders his minion to quickly gather as many people as possible, and while they are distracted, they can steal the jade unnoticed. He looked at our guys who were brightly celebrating their victory, because now they had become terribly rich. In fact, this dude just doesn't want to get down on his knees and ask for forgiveness, so he tells Barnacle Boy to hurry up and gather as many people as possible. Our hero cannot understand why this jade is so expensive, and asks the lady with purple hair because she is a good appraiser. She talks about the rarity of such a stone, and that the last time it was sold at an exorbitant price. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, our hero orders his friends to grab all their jewelry and get out of this place because annoying connoisseurs will soon be here. But it seems it was already too late because a huge crowd had already arrived at them, asking him to pay a little attention to them, because they were offering him a very tempting offer. But this is not the first time our guys have played this game, and so Xiao Shan grabs the girl in his arms and they, at sonic speed, begin to leave this damned place. The girl tells her boyfriend to run even faster, and suddenly the spirit of a real sprinter awakened in him and he began to run faster. Finally, they were able to break away from the crowd, but our hero regrets that he did not stay there a little longer, because he could have found many more valuable stones and sold them for a high price. He remembers his dreams of a luxury sports car and a huge house, but now he needs to make one important call. Duyu tells Xiaoshan how they got there, and whether they were able to break away from the crowd, and also praised his incredible speed like a real athlete. Xiaoshan is just telling him that the owner of the stone has finally been found, and the elder has just contacted him, and the girl is only thinking about how she will become terribly rich. It turns out that the elder wants to see him in person at a private villa, but our hero does not want to go there alone and is counting on the accompaniment of his comrade. In parting, he curses his friend for not wanting to go with him and hangs up. But Xiaoshan says that the point is not that he did not want to accompany him, but that the great runner was very tired, and it was time to rest. He lost consciousness holding the phone in his hands, and the girl stood opposite him and thought that he decided to die in broad daylight. The action moves to a huge country house in which the old man sat peacefully sipping his jasmine hour, welcoming our hero. The old man heard from Xiaoshan that the boy is now looking for a house, and the man next door left and entrusted the house to him. It would be very convenient if they became neighbors, but our hero thinks that this offer is too good for him. He makes a very humble face and says that he believes what the old man wants to do for him, but this is too much help no matter what. But it turns out that Xiaoshan visits him very rarely, and if the old man suddenly gets sick, there will be no one to look after him, so it would be nice if our hero lived not far from him. But Duyu asks him not to say such terrible words, because this old man will definitely outlive them all, and will definitely not die in the near future. The grandfather just started laughing at these words and said that our boy should stay with them overnight. In this case, he wants to make his second proposal. Would the main character want to learn the martial arts that the old man himself owns? He gives him a kung fu style respect and says that it's a great offer, but the area is pretty safe now and he can just call the police. But in reality, he thinks that his ability to see the future will suffice. Grandfather decides to ask his third question, and it was about girls. Maybe he needs to find someone, but he immediately remembers his beautiful lady who knows martial arts. The grandfather wanted to propose the candidacy of his granddaughter, but since our hero's heart was already occupied, he would not insist. Anyway, little would have happened. The action moves to a new huge house in which our boy sat and looked at his new precious guys. Xiaoshan sent these stones especially for him, and our hero thought about the fact that he won them in gambling and received incredible pleasure from it. But he simply throws away a very valuable stone because he remembers the elder's words that he would not be worthy of this old man's great-granddaughter. Why did he even decide that this was so? He remembers the spy's girlfriend and everyone else who has been in his life lately, and says that his granddaughter didn't even stand next to these girls. Our hero clearly deserves more. Night had already fallen, our boy was fast asleep, but suddenly several people came into the room, quietly whispering to each other about the fat guy who should have already fallen asleep. It turns out to be two robbers in ninja masks who came here specifically to steal some valuable dragon, probably a figurine. These guys said that first it would be necessary to finish off the guy who was sleeping, but they changed their minds, saying that he would not interfere, and our main character did not sleep and was thinking about the strange situation in which he now found himself. Duyu thinks that now it would be better not to say too much, because his life is more valuable than that money, and the robbers were talking among themselves. It came here on the orders of that guy with red hair. He asked them to steal the jade, especially that small precious piece. Of course, our hero tried to pretend to be asleep, but still could not believe that the red-haired guy decided to take such a step to achieve his goal. Finally, one of the bad guys found that very valuable piece of jade that was lying next to our protagonist's pillow. Duyu now couldn't even move because he couldn't cope with two men, but in his thoughts he begged that his precious jade not be touched. But suddenly the dude makes a very crazy face and tells our hero that it's a very fun activity to pretend to be asleep and eavesdrop on other people's conversations. Duyu can't understand how he realized this, but he already began to shake with fear. Maybe it's really a lot of fun to pretend, but after everything he even started crying. There is a legend about a jade dragon that has white scales, and when something happens to it, the dragon becomes furious. But for our hero, these stones were like scales, and he said that the robbers should not dare touch his valuables. At one point, his nerves can't stand the tension, and he gets out of bed screaming and tries to take his stone from this guy. The robber, of course, was shocked that this guy screamed so loudly, but the bad guy is also not so simple and wants to do his job, so he evades our hero and tells this brat to try to take the jade from him. Instead of a stone, Du Yu ends up with that bad guy's hat in his hands, and he seems to reveal a little of his identity. We are again reminded of the legend of the Chinese dragon, whose neck had white scales, and if someone touched it, the dragon would fly into an incredible rage. This is also known as reverse scale, and it seems that our main character saw something that he was not supposed to see. It turns out that this dude was practically bald and therefore hid his head under this hat. Now he is clearly angry with our boy. He jumps on his back, causing Du Yu to start having terrible pain and yelling at the whole apartment. Apparently, there was no need to reveal that guy's secret. They start chasing each other throughout the apartment. That guy vowed to finish off our hero because he must take this secret with him to the grave. At one point, he is already tired of this whole Formula 1 race, and the robber tells this brat to just stand still and wait for his hour of judgment. He swings at our boy, but thanks to his ability, he manages to dodge and not get hit. But the bald man turns out to be much more cunning, and immediately after the first blow, he delivers a second full blow to our hero's face. Unfortunately, his body can't keep up with his ability, and this time he flies away from the robber and gets hit on the nose. After that, he takes out a knife from his pocket and is about to do harakiri for Du Yu. The boy's abilities suddenly stopped keeping up with his movements, and he had already accepted that he would soon die. But according to the canon, the main character cannot die in the middle of the story, so the old man who suddenly awakens comes to his aid and stops the blow with a knife. The bad guy can't understand what the hell is going on here, and where did this bald old man come from? Apparently the old man is also offended by the words about his bald head, and he also tells the legend about the scales and the dragon, which is widely known as the scale of growth. But our old man is not an old wreck that can be insulted by a small puppy, after which a strong aura appears around the old man. Not only do young people now have no respect for martial arts, but they also don't know how to control their dirty mouths, after which the grandfather wants to show who the real boss of the rocking chair is. The old man tells them not to pay attention to his age because despite this, he still remains an incredibly strong master who will definitely smash them all over the wall. The bald robber is already tired of listening to all this nonsense of a sick old man, and he throws a knife at him with the words so that he does not see him in the death of a person. Of course, the old man dodges and the robber has to go into hand-to-hand combat. It seems he made a big mistake, and the second robber decided to become a member of the support group. He already realized that his partner deliberately launched 2 throwing knives. This is a special technique that he came up with to distract his opponents. And when the old man is in the zone of his destruction, the old man will be finished. Despite his age, the grandfather turns out to be too fast and then hits the robber right in the neck, causing him to lose consciousness and fall to the floor. Our main character lay in shock on the floor and could not believe that an old man in pajamas with cats was able to show such an incredible fight. But the robber's partner was still on his feet and wanted to avenge his older brother. But he turns out to be too arrogant, and our grandfather simply pokes his fingers into his throat, causing the robber to choke. He warns that no one dares to call him a bald old man, and if our main character were not sitting in this room right now, he would have smeared them all over the wall and would not have left a living space. The battle is over and the grandfather wants to know how Du Yu feels, but from what he saw he cannot even say a word. The grandfather was simply incredible in this battle. His eyes began to shine like a prayer from Genshin Impact, and he asked for forgiveness for saying that martial arts were a waste of time. He would really like to learn the same techniques. Grandfather doesn't want to forgive our hero so easily, because Du Yu said that the police can do a better job. Now is not the time to discuss this, so they will talk about classes tomorrow. After morning came, our hero was incredibly sleepy, and because of this, the old man yelled at him because this is a real disrespect for martial arts. He asked the master for forgiveness, but after a successful night with the attack of robbers, he simply could not sleep peacefully. Before starting his training, our hero must decide for himself why he is starting to practice martial arts. Not long ago, Du Yu reflected on the fact that he thought that he would just live an ordinary life like many others, but over time, huge changes began to occur in Blue. But now that he has a lot, he would like to keep it. He wants to protect his fortune and the people who surround him, and if yesterday's situation repeats, he must be ready to fight. The master was quite satisfied with the guy's answer, and he decides to give him a test. Du Yu will have to keep a distance of 3 steps from his grandfather while attacking him. This is done to test his reflexes. At first, the boy does not understand how he should do this because his grandfather is a very powerful warrior, but the old man says that he must give it his all or he will kick him out of his students. He activates the ability of his left eye and thinks that with its help, it will be easy enough for him to dodge his attacks. The grandfather's movements were incredibly fast, but even so, our hero is able to foresee in which direction the blow will fall. The old master begins to understand that the main character is dodging for a reason. He seems to know in advance where his next blow will be, but the last swing was too close to do you. All this was pretty good, and now grandfather is preparing a second blow. Let's see how the kid copes with it. But even from such a sharp blow, he manages to dodge to the side. Great. Now there is only one dodge left to do. Suddenly something happened that our boy's eye definitely couldn't see. Grandfather's hand began to twist and return in the opposite direction from the blow. An incredible amount of aura appeared in Duyu's face. It was simply impossible to believe that this old man had so much strength. It was not for nothing that he was called a master, but he still decides not to finish off his student and simply hits him lightly on the head. Duyu was able to dodge his first two blows, and this is already worthy of great praise. At this moment, our guy was truly desperate, because since he could not dodge the third blow, he would no longer be able to learn from the great master. The old man simply silently grabs him from the back and takes him in a grip, but our hero does not understand what the hell this old man is doing. Although our hero was defeated, after examining him, he realized that Duyu has good data, he has flexible bones and strong muscles, which is very good for his age. Plus, he has excellent ki energy potential, which serves as the beginning for martial arts. Duyu thinks that the old man is talking about the power of that jade that he absorbed earlier. Maybe this is that energy. In short, our hero has excellent abilities and is capable of becoming a martial arts master, but he will have to train a lot for this. They will start their first training right now, and first the old man will show him what a Shinyi fist is. The Shinyi fist is different from a regular strike and is practiced in 3 stages. It differs in that, in addition to physical training, they also practice directing their QE energy through the strike. But before that, our hero will have to overcome the limits of his own body with the help of hellish torture that will begin right now. The essence of this lesson is to teach Duyu to maintain calm in his body for a long time, and therefore there will be a burning fire under him. This is the only way to bring his energy to the ideal. Our hero had been in this state for 3 whole hours and begged the old man for a break. But the master knows that he needs to overcome his own body limits in order to know true strength. Over the next 6 days, our boy will train 6 hours a day and lunge 5 kilometers. These are the absolute basics that everyone should go through. Hearing all these hellish conditions, Duyu was about to give up, but remembering that he had a lot to protect, he continued to stand. At one point, he simply started yelling at the master that everything behind him was on fire, but the old man said that this should not bother him. Duyu should strengthen his body and mind and think only about the training process. Finally, the guy can just sit down calmly and relax. He trained for several hours, and if it weren't for the ability of his left eye to regenerate, he would definitely die. How can an ordinary person withstand this? He is already getting sick of constantly complaining, but he understands that he can only rely on himself, after which his phone rang. It was Xiao Shan, and our hero warns him that he cannot speak normally now because he still has to train with the elder. Xiao Shan tells him about the ghost market. Our hero says that he asked the old man for leave and will come right away. Maybe he can still attract his attention. He really liked this place because it's very lively and reminds him of the times when he was in his first year and organized discos, by the way. That girl with purple hair will also come soon, and our hero must again create situations for him. Duyu clearly doesn't like this idea, but he simply can't help but help his brother, so he agrees because he made the face of Sigma. Suddenly that girl appears and grabs the guy by the ear, screaming because he made her wait here all day. Of course, Xiao Shan apologizes and says that the whole next evening will be at his personal expense. Our hero looks at this couple very sweetly and thinks that their relationship is very unusual, but in fact he is just very tired of his new life. The couple discussed a gift for a relative, but Xiao Shan couldn't come up with anything because Grandpa only likes antiques, so they came to the ghost market. After they had been walking around this market for several hours, our hero had already managed to buy several scrolls, but he no longer had enough of the energy that his left eye had absorbed. He notices a guy sitting on the floor selling items, but he seems to be attracted to only one item. Inside the Buddha statue, there is a strange red ball. It radiated exactly the same energy as previous objects with superpowers. He almost threw away the scrolls he had bought, but he urgently needed to get that figurine with the mysterious stone. The boy approaches that mysterious seller of various antiques and asks how much he can sell that figurine. Apparently, this cunning dude saw in our main character an ordinary chance to make money from deception because he looks like an ordinary student. He begins to say that it was destined that Duyu came to this place and wants to talk about the origin of this statue from the Ming dynasty. But our hero immediately tells him that he doesn't believe in all sorts of magic figurines. He's just an ordinary student and wants to buy it to play with a beautiful thing. How much does it cost? But the merchant with glasses is clearly not happy that the guy treats his goods so disrespectfully and asks him to hold his dirty tongue behind his teeth in the name of the gods. At one point, the seller realizes that he is too angry and coughing a little. He says that this statue is the house of a deity that brings good luck. This is a very valuable and useful item, and therefore the guy with glasses can sell it for at least 50. Our hero does not understand the reason for such a low cost of the figure. Even Lego figures are more expensive, after which he asks again. The merchant again cannot contain his anger, and he says that Du Yu is a real idiot. It's simply impossible for a deity to inhabit an object that costs 50 yuan. It costs 50,000, although it is very cheap. Then there was a long bargaining in which the hero won cash and bought this figurine for only 800 wen, just as Xiaoshan and her friend were returning back. He immediately asks our boy about the scrolls and figurine of the deity that he bought. Is Du Yu really going to become a monk? But our main character says that they are stupid and do not understand anything about martial arts.
He says that the two can continue shopping while he goes and looks at his new treasures. They agree and ask Du Yu to tell him when he is free.
Arriving home, our hero immediately breaks the god's container with a hammer and finds a strange stone there that looks like a human eye. Du Yu carefully examined the glow that emanated from it and realized that it was different from those precious stones that were there before. He decides that the best solution would be to simply absorb this power into his left eye and then see the result. As soon as our hero brought the stone to his eye, it began to glow more intensely and strange tattoos appeared on the guy's body. After completing the ritual, the stone simply stopped glowing and rolled to the side, and our boy simply lost consciousness on the bed. The action moves to the red-haired bad guy who was approached with an answer about our hero. He is a university student and has grown up in some remote village since birth. His face immediately changed because now he could ruin his studies. He thought that he was an orphan and just wanted to earn money for his studies. But now he won't be able to do this. The red-haired kid says that he will definitely teach him a lesson so that our hero will know that he is not the right person to mess with, and orders to gather several strong guys to deal with him. He makes the most smug face and says that Du Yu should not think that he is so cool. The guy with red hair wants to show him a fate that is much worse than death. The action moves to our main character who woke up feeling a terrible cold. He thought that he shouldn't so thoughtlessly absorb all the artifacts. God knows what this could turn out to be. He dropped the blanket on the bed quite a bit, and everything around him started jumping up and down along with our boy. I wonder what this new ability is. Du Yu himself didn't understand what happened at first, and said that the beds here were really of very poor quality. He wants to leave the room to call someone who can fix the bed and is already reaching for the door handle. But instead of opening the door, our hero doesn't calculate his strength and simply tears it off. God, did he really get super strength? He makes Saitama's face and is perplexed because now not only does the bed need to be fixed, but the door is also broken. Going out into the street, Du Yu decided to go for a short jog and began to realize that the jade he had absorbed yesterday had affected his body. All of his physical abilities had become much greater than those of an ordinary person. While carrying out the training program that the elder gave him, he realized that he was running 5 kilometers too easily and wanted to double them. He wanted to eat some noodles after running. Our hero was already sitting in the restaurant and was looking forward to eating delicious noodles, but everyone in the restaurant looked at the boy strangely. They started talking to each other because this was the same guy, and they thought that he looked exactly the same as in the photograph. The guys take out iron bats and call our hero a damn brat. Apparently these are exactly the mercenaries whom the red-haired guy sent. Du Yu, in bewilderment, cannot understand what the hell these guys want from him, because he came to eat noodles in peace, and here are some bandits preventing him from doing this. He understands that these freaks came here for him, and thinks about how to conduct a battle in a restaurant and hurt civilians. The villains make the first blow with their clubs. Our hero dodges the attack, but unfortunately the beautiful noodle cannot be saved and she dies the death of the heroes. Du Yu begins to cry and mourn because he took just one small bite from these noodles. These creatures will pay him for this. He remembers the time when on his small salary he could rarely afford one bowl of beef noodles, but that's okay. Now is just a great time for Du Yu to test his new abilities. His eyes change once again and glow bright blue. After so much training, he has clearly become stronger. Without thinking for a long time, he delivers a good blow right into the face of the guy with the bat, and he flies several meters to the side. Du Yu remembered everything that the old man taught him, and therefore gets into a fist strike pose to direct his strength in the right direction.
Seeing that our main character is not so simple, they realize that he was trained in martial arts and therefore want to attack all together to increase the chances of victory.
But our boy is not going to wait until these freaks finish him off and decides to make the first blow. Surprisingly, he manages to hit the first time. After a few such blows, all the villains were already lying on the floor, and Du-Yu stood over them like Hanma Yujiro from the anime Baki, who had just defeated all the strongest warriors on this planet. He was in great shock and looked at his hands. Was this really his ability? Since he still had not used his real strength, Du-Yu would be able to fight 10 of the same warriors. But still, it bothers him that first he was attacked by robbers and now by bandits. Maybe someone was hunting for him. He needs to conduct an investigation. He had just left the restaurant, but there was already a crowd of people waiting for him who clearly didn't want this brat to get rid of them so easily. They look like a gang of Tokyo Avengers and say that our main character crossed the path of someone who shouldn't have, and now he will pay for it. But suddenly Du-Yu does the Joseph Joestar move and simply disappears from the sight of the bad guys. They didn't even notice how the kid just disappeared. As soon as they turned around, they saw our hero on the other side of the street, and their leader gave the order to catch this damn dude. They yelled after him to stop running away and just accept the punishment, but Du-Yu is not going to stop according to one of the orders. The chase was still going on, and while our hero was feeling calm, these guys were already starting to get tired and couldn't understand how Du-Yu could run so fast and for so long. Suddenly the chase stops because our main character is in a dead end. Now he will have to fight a little with these guys. Having caught up with him, they promised that they would knock out all his teeth for making them run, but our boy is also not simple, and says that even if he cannot defeat everyone, he will do the maximum that he is now capable of. Gritting his teeth, he calls on his strength and makes many blows to the faces of these freaks. Training with the old man was definitely not in vain. He began to feel a strange feeling as if the whole world around him had slowed down, but in fact it was our hero who began to move too fast. The foresight of his left eye, combined with the superpower that he received, gives an incredible effect that allows him to defeat all the bandits. And since our boy has become so strong, it won't be difficult for him to deal with the rest of the gang. Suddenly, a guy who looks like Baji appears and says that no one has ever dodged his flying blow. He says that if our hero kneels and begs for forgiveness, then he will not beat him very hard. But while this guy was chatting a lot, our hero managed to grab his leg and stop the blow. Baji didn't even understand how it happened. And here is Du-Yu's new ability. When used, his entire body is covered with tattoos and he becomes so strong that he is able to hold a person in the air. While everyone is standing in shock from such power, Du-Yu decided to give this guy a ride at the second cosmic speed, which makes him start screaming. Our hero takes this freak and uses it as a bowling ball, knocking out a powerful strike where the bandits were the pins. They cannot understand what kind of incredible power is stored in this guy, because they were told that he is an ordinary orphan. Even the power of the hooligans cannot cope with him, and they decide that they need to attack everyone in the bathroom. And Du-Yu feels just great because he just received the power of God and thinks that he is capable of anything. He wants to know how much these guys were paid to get to him. Having finished his epic warm-up, he asks who will be his next punching bag because our hero can now fight all day. Suddenly, we are shown a camera flash and a girl who is secretly filming what is happening and admires that Du-Yu was able to kill so many people with one blow. Simply incredible strength. Meanwhile, our hero's dance continued, and he felt like Madara, who was fighting with the Shinobi Alliance and felt great superiority. While our boy continues to beat up the freaks, two of them decided to run away. They no longer cared about the reward for the capture of the main character, because this money would not be able to cover the costs of medical services. As a result, these two ran into a dead end and could not get out of it, and meanwhile that girl with a camera was jumping like a ninja along the walls of the building and wanted to beat these guys. Du-Yu is distracted from his battle to take a closer look at that lady, but he cannot understand where this little girl came from. Surprisingly, she dealt with these hooligans too easily given her physical capabilities. I wonder who she is. Our hero wants to find out some information about her from the bully, but he says that she is not a little girl, but a real treacherous woman. Having activated his ability of X-ray vision, he saw that this girl is indeed very mature. But all this will remain behind the scenes, but he is still surprised by the capabilities of this lady. It turns out that she greatly admires our hero and would like him to teach her martial arts because he just defeated a huge crowd of people. But Du-Yu says that he does not deserve such praise. Unfortunately, he himself has not yet been trained in all the necessary things and therefore cannot become her teacher. But his master will be able to take her as a student because she has good skills and will be able to learn a lot. But at one point he realizes that he started talking too much, even though he doesn't know this girl at all or even what her name is. This girl's name is Xiao Yan, and she is a member of a gang of truckers. This is the most powerful gang in the city and also has enormous influence. She invites him to talk about the student in a slightly different place, otherwise it's too dirty here, and suddenly her phone started ringing. Our hero was a little shocked that such a girl belongs to such a successful gang and thinks that it would be better to somehow get rid of her quickly so that there are no unnecessary problems. It turns out that our hero's friend Xiaoshan called her, and she started telling him about what happened. It's simply impossible to believe that he alone was able to defeat an entire gang. She was about to ask to be his student, but suddenly Xiaoshan says that Du Yu is his friend and that he studied martial arts with the elder. After the awkward pause ended, the girl looked at our hero completely differently and simply said that she was pleased to meet a friend of her friends. What a dark city it was. They begin to show us the actions that took place 10 minutes ago. One person was talking on the phone about a new student, and he couldn't wait to get to know him. This is some blue-eyed dude who really wants to test the strength of this new student. Will he be able to withstand him? Judging by the description, this is a cute girl with green hair, and it seems to him that they just decided to prank him on the phone. He will call him later in order to fully feel the power of his new student. Coming out of the alley, his face immediately changes, and he cannot understand what the hell is going on here. It turns out that he went out onto the very street on which the main character fought, and he could not believe that he alone was able to defeat so many bandits. What kind of power is hidden in his body? During the call, the elder could not understand why the guy stopped answering him and assumed that he had met with Du Yu and wanted to find out how he was doing. The old man tells him to try to test the strength of the main character, but the blue-eyed guy thinks that this is a prank from his grandfather. After all, this dude just defeated a whole crowd. Is he even human? The guy with red hair wanted to call one of the bandits to find out if they could deal with our hero, but they didn't pick up the phone, and this made him angry. From the influx of emotions, he simply throws the phone aside and says that all his mercenaries are just trash that are worth nothing. There were about 100 people there, and 20 minutes ago they said that they had found Du Yu, but why the hell not one of them is answering him now? He can't believe that our main character is just an ordinary orphan, and thinks that he is protected by some unknown force. The red-haired guy feels truly powerless against him. Also, Xiaoshan keeps opening his eyes all the time, as if deliberately unnerving him, but soon they will all pay him to the calculations. The action moves to an elder who was doing the usual things for old people, namely sitting in his garden and cutting leaves from his small tree. At one point, someone loudly called Elder Jew, and because of this, his hand slipped and cut off half the tree to hell. This was his favorite plant, and with tears in his eyes, he yells at the person who tore him away from such an important activity. The girl with green hair wants to remind the old man who she is, but the grandfather can't remember and thinks that our main character found a new girlfriend on the way here. She talks about how Du Yu defeated 100 people when she passed by the alley, and when she asked about his abilities, he said that he was learning martial arts from the old Master Jew. The old man was a little perplexed when he heard about the battle against hundreds of people, because our hero had only recently begun to undergo all the training. Despite the fact that the girl begged him to take her as a student, he said that they would repeat this later, but now he wants to leave Du Yu and talk face to face. Our main character immediately realized that trouble awaited him and thought that soon the secret of his left eye would be revealed. His eyes became simply huge with fear. But suddenly the grandfather simply grabs our hero by the hand and directs his energy into his body. It seems that he felt something strange. The same tattoos appeared on his hands, and the old man cannot understand what happened to our hero and where such fashionable ki energy came from. These actions shock our hero, because the grandfather is the only one who was able to notice his tattoos and incredible strength. Does the grandfather also have similar strength? While the grandfather is carefully examining our hero, Du Yu is already starting to come up with excuses for his left eye, and considering that he sees his tattoos, it will be very difficult to just lie. They decided not to show us a retelling of the long story, and told us that our main character smokes a figurine in the market and then goes to fight those bandits. The grandfather was very amused by these stories, and he pats the hero on the shoulder, saying that this is a great way to develop his martial arts, but it seems that the old man overdid it with the force of the blow. Just in time, our hero raised his level in martial arts because he wants to talk with these two about the further development of training. He begins to tell stories and says that unfortunately, ordinary people do not know much about society and culture. For 5,000 years, various martial arts have been passed down from generation to generation in China. But not many masters have survived to this day who are able to withstand as many as 100 people. You can improve your martial arts in different ways, but there are also magical artifacts that were made by the gods themselves, with the help of which a person can awaken simply incredible abilities. He takes a sip of fresh tea and says that there are also people who rely exclusively on these artifacts, and they are known as snipe analysts. Many of them are already born with a special sense of the elements, while others receive it with the help of artifacts. And our main character already thought that he could combine martial arts and the magic of artifacts. He handed him an old book, but Du did not immediately understand what kind of strange writings it was. This book contains many different notes on how you can cleanse your chi energy and how to control it so that it flows freely through your veins, while some guy with white hair was climbing over the fence. Our main character must remember everything that is written in these countries' books and carefully study every page. And then Xiaoshan appears there. Of course, he completely breaks our grandfather's table. The elder even began to wonder why everyone today couldn't just go through the main entrance. The tree seemed to be dying and said goodbye to the grandfather, telling him that it could no longer live in this world, but the old man must continue to live. The main character immediately began training, because if he learns to hit the right points on the enemy's bodies, he will become even stronger, and the abilities of his eyes will also change. The girl with green hair wanted to ask Xiaoshan to give her a ride in his car, but it seems that he doesn't care about that now. Du thought that today was just an amazing day, filled with different things, and he didn't even notice how his friend was begging for help in the background.